A-E-1 short.
Hi there, my name is Gabriel Velazquez Zazueta. I'm a graphic and branding designer in New York City. Belong now to what is a thriving, ever-growing mezcal community. So I became the link of the successful creative projects in a few different places. The one goal that you're going to be doing all your life finding its way to you. And we are at Sometime Somewhere for AT1 Radio. I grew up in a household with an engineer that wanted to be more of a veterinary. So my house was a zoo to start. We always travel a lot outside the city. My life growing up was mostly traveling from Mexico City to Culiacan. That is where my mom is. So traveling and seeing things was part of the thing. It was a 27-hour trip from Mexico City at the time, from Mexico City to Culiacan, Sinaloa. So I think being observant and entertained, because obviously, I'm not a spring chicken. I'm 46, and there was nothing to do other than to watch. And that became kind of a thing growing up. So I'm very... I can see detail, I can see patterns, I can see movement. I think a little bit different than anybody else, at least for my peers. My key ability is to see a little bit bigger, a bit broader on things and how they evolve also. And that with the, your question was like the creative part and the drawing part. There was a need to put it somewhere. So there was always a necessity for this. Younger Gabriel was watercolors, pencil, black ink, all the simplicity of that, and always trying to look to do as much of detail and cohesiveness. But then I realized that photography can be a tool too. So that was probably where the change from I want to be a painter or a sculptor kind of moving to the graphic design of the era, that it was animation and illustration on digital. I probably one of the dinosaurs that use a bubble Mac, a little tiny iMac when they came out. That was my power station. They were super fast. And you can only do one task at a time. And, digital was the beginning, but the foundation of my work became silkscreen. Repetition, fast, accurate, and also you can sell it. So I could do some money out of it. So I pay my university doing t-shirts and bags and business cards, something that people don't do anymore. It's all digital, no? But there was a need for print products. In that time, I started, traveling a little more. We're back into, probably college time now. I was never afraid to travel by car by myself. So I end up in a lot of different places alone. And one of those places was San Miguel Allende. I met an incredible person from New York too at the time, and she referred to me to the fabric workshop and museum, and that was an incredible part of it because I never heard about it. Philadelphia was never in the radar. Like, look at this, look what they do, and the first thing that I see is like a printing table that is 25 yards, and you can use a screen the size of a door frame, and I was like, what is that? And immediately was one of those things that I started doing a little more research. The first season that I could apply passed by too fast and I couldn't do anything but call the fabric workshop and ask, like, I don't understand this. Can somebody explain me how do I apply? Like, where are you calling from? And I was like, Mexico City. And I was like, oh, I don't think we have ever had somebody from Mexico City. I was like, well, there's always one. I took my slides, I apply, and I ended myself in 2004, 2005 in Philadelphia for half a year. This was at almost, finishing school, finished school in Mexico City, start, doing a little bit of a graphic design studio, left, come here, and then I realized this is what 24/7, 365 days a week looks like, making art. And I was like, I want that. I was very, very, very lucky. We're missing a big part of all this. That is my partner, Sabrina. Sabrina and her family were and are quintessential to my success of staying and living the way that I am right now. When I moved to New York was already because Sabrina and I were figuring out things. And I applied. I did the same recipe. I applied for a job that wasn't a job, but I created one for myself, and I suggested that if they were able to pay rent, I will work full time for them. It was a company called Neighborhoodies at the time. That it was kind of funny. Sales screen, customization of all kinds of things. So something that I was very well versed. So I was very lucky. Got accepted. Got a tiny studio apartment on Columbia Street in Red Hook. That it was very strange because Red Hook didn't look like the way that it looked now. It was a little more scary. And Sabrina's family helped me out for the first 6 months. Sabrina ended up moving to New York, find a job. She worked in a foundry making art. She's an incredible specialist of project managing and mold making and production of all kinds of art projects, including our art project that we do. So that was the beginning to get here, and getting by was strange. Like I was at the time not illegal in any kind of form because I was here on a visa, but I couldn't work. So that was tricky because I did work, and I did work a lot, mostly design. And there were 3 or 4 shops that I worked by, and I met a lot of really cool people that then became friends and collaborators too as well. I run and work with my wife in a company called Tuyo NYC. Tuyo in Spanish is of ours. Tu y yo is a little bit of a pun on that. And we started this when there was nothing. So we started from scratch, a company from scratch, with material that was never used, with designs that there were never in the market, meaning there were cups and you'd say, oh, they look like sake cups. So yes, we didn't invent the cup, but we went through a lot of research and development for what we think and want to be one of the best drinking cups that you can have. Material, process, all that kind of stuff. So it evolved into a very interesting thing. We started seeing this and making these materials, and then you hit the road with how much it's going to cost. No problem. Materials, this, that, design, $40, $50. Yeah, but people don't know mezcal. So how are you going to sell somebody a high-end cup when they don't know the thing that they're going to put in, and they don't feel that there's a relationship with that, right? So that was incredible, because the whole creativity that we dump into creating a product became the same force to create the educational products that we have. Mezcal has this cheesy line that a lot of people do, and it's weird to hear it because he said mezcal finds you. But I think the truly aspect of this is that the one goal that you're going to be doing all your life finds its way to you. And mezcal was one of the interesting things. You say, what was I drinking? I was drinking whiskey, cheap whiskey, beer, and Bacardi white, silver. That was the thing that you drink when you were a teenager and young adult in Mexico City. Mezcal was non-existent, and it has the bad reputation that if you drink this thing called mezcal, you're gonna get blind because it was adulterated, and there was all this kind of very obvious misinformation of what this incredible liquid is. But it makes sense now. It was something that if it was nurtured the way that it is now, it will be equally like when you hear a cognac or a whiskey that is $2,500 a bottle or 30 years age in something. Like mezcal has and is that now. Is a really interesting thing. So that was the connection. The connection, it was in the States. We were celebrating, my wife and I, we were saying our 10-year anniversary. And every time we go back to Mexico was either to Sinaloa to visit my mom's family or my parents in Mexico City. But in those 10 years, we didn't have yet the opportunity to plan a trip that was out. And she just keep on hearing all these incredible things about Oaxaca, Chiapas, Veracruz, all this incredible southern side of Mexico that we have no clue about. Well, she wasn't. And I was like, you know what? My most vivid, joyful memory of going somewhere else down south was Oaxaca. Let's do some research. And we end up walking by probably one of the oldest mezcalerias in Oaxaca and sit down on what it was at that time, because they moved. They had a tiny little window, and we sit there every night and learn from the owner, not just the basics, but I think she injected the passion, but also the side of question, like, how is this possible? Is 200 and something plants, complicated elaboration, like fermentation is just magic. The double distillation, the fact that they cook it in an underground pit, like there's all these elements that they're so artistic, period. That everything sounded and smelled and tasted like the things that we do here. Plaster molds, the timing, silicone rubber things, bronze, wood. Like there's all these elements of making something from scratch. And that was mezcal, and the flavors were just intense. So fast forward now, I had the luck to belong now to what is a thriving, ever-growing mezcal community, Mexican community, not just mezcal community. The food is integral part of this, and the mezcal, and there are multiple iterations, because now you have industrial, now you have artisanal, now you have traditional, or with a little more heritage. So it gets tricky to narrow it down. Where does all this come from? And the artistic side of the Gabriel that I talk of Mexico, and the artistic side of traveling and just being observant, and the artistic side of becoming that same person here 20 years later, connecting, understanding who's making what are they making, why are they making it, what is their passion, how I can be a cultural, visual translator to another brand that wants to tap into what these kids are doing. You have a brand that is made and owned by Americans, and they want to tap into one of the hot Mexican places and do a tasting. Like, how do you connect these guys together? Well, the connection was the copita and the plate. But the copita and the plate doesn't talk. I talk. So I became the link of the successful creative projects in a few different places. I work with a brand of mezcal, then he evolved into that. I work in about 2 brands of mezcal. One I redesigned, and it was just that project, and it was phenomenal. That where the thought of a visual cultural translator come to mind, because I did an incredible 6-month research and development, and then the brand was redesigned. It's called Agua del Sol. It's in my website. You can see it. I did a whole case study that you can see it, but it was based on Mitla and it was based on the textiles, and it was based on what Oaxaca offers visually, plus the mastery of the artists that I was working with. So working with another culture with another country's artists, another culture of work and timing, translated to New York culture of timing and work, and wrap all that in a bow and create a brand for a brand that it was going to be sold only in the States at the beginning, and now it's in Oaxaca as well. So it was very interesting to see how the American side of it and the Mexican side of it, of the brand, were relying heavily on what I can help them put together. You should look at Tuyo NYC. It's just that tuyo.nyc. That's the website of the business. My personal website is ggvc, B as a Viking, .nyc. Those two will put you in all the other places that I have. I have a cool documenting IG account called 5-Inch Monsters, and those are just subway mouths, and that's a whole other season of this podcast if we want to.
AE1 Short.
At Sometimes Somewhere is produced by Audio-Technica for AT1 Radio. It is recorded at AT1 Studio at Technica House, New York. Follow AT1 Radio and Audio-Technica USA on all social media platforms. Thanks for listening.